Good morning, Charles.
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
Excellent. Let's celebrate.
Did you recovered from your weekend?
I did, and I am going to. I was kind of half joking there, but I am going to celebrate because normally, what I have a habit of doing is I will write out like a long, sophisticated workout program for me over 6 to 8 weeks, whatever. And, I put it on a calendar and I said what days I'm going to do it and what time I'm going to do it. And, I did that and I was excited because I'm changing up my workout, which I hadn't done in a long time. Instead of kind of doing the same stuff over and over again, I changed up, I reduced the number of different kinds of exercises, made it really simple, kind of cleaned it up. And I think probably, going through Tiny Habits here with you has helped me be able to kind of refine things and look at, hey, where am I going to get most of the benefit out of? Let's not overcomplicate things so that it makes it more difficult to do, right? If I have to remember all these different exercises and so I've cut down my exercise, 2 different exercises per body part for a workout and I've been really enjoying it, and so it's been a mental refresher for me. So I normally just, try to really stick to the plan, but yesterday I was it could be completely transparent. I was a little hungover from having a couple of drinks at the event with you on Saturday night.
Yeah,
and I normally was, I was going to push through, and my Whoop band told me I was not recovered, and I was going to be like, screw the Whoop band, I'm going to go. I got my workout plan, but then you know what? I was just like, I paused, and I was like, you know what? Let's just skip it. I ended up going shopping instead for some food, kind of get ready for the week. And I woke up this morning with a green recovery in the 80%. I was excited. So nice. I skipped my workout, and even though I didn't want to, but I'm totally grateful that I did. So I am celebrating right now, right here with you in my own mind. Yes. So how about you? How was your weekend?
Good. Saturday night was fun, but not fun in the same way that those events have been fun for me before. And I appreciate Kurt lines up that VIP table for all those events. And since I stopped drinking, I haven't been buying into a share of the VIP table because I'm like, I'm not drinking. I'm not taking advantage of the bottle service. And now Kurt's not drinking and he's still getting the VIP table. So I feel a little bit guilty about that.
Well, and you know what? So, right. And I literally had a conversation with him this morning and I was like, hey, I sent him some money for my portion of the VIP table. And I did drink, and he's like, oh, you didn't need to do that. I didn't ask you for any money. So he was going to foot the whole thing. And I had already sent him, for my portion of it. And I already gave him more because I knew normally it's like the 4 of us. And I figured, well, now it's only 3 of us. So I gave him like a third instead of a fourth for it. And he's like, oh, no, don't worry. So he was fully expecting to pay for all of us and then, not drink and then included a bottle of booze, so that was, Kurt, if you're listening, thank you. Appreciate it. That was very kind, very generous, unexpected, and nice little early Christmas present. So thanks for that.
Yeah, it is very generous of him, and I'm probably gonna talk to him about making it or doing something nice for him to make it worth his while because I do appreciate it. I enjoy the guys. That was probably the best table. That was the best location in the house, by the way. I thought he always gets the best ones. So that was really, really nice. Good job, man. Yeah, I'm going to. It does change the way those events go and the way that I go about enjoying them is different when I'm not drinking though. It is
of course.
Getting loud and making all the jokes and stuff. It's not. It's not the same experience as when, you got 2 or 3 or 4 free quote unquote free drinks in you. And so I found myself wishing that the event was a little bit more structured because it's pretty much, get dressed up in in an interesting outfit. Last night was red. The white party obviously was white. We did the one in Aloha Beautiful, which was, dress up, Hawaiian shirts and stuff. And that's all fun. I really enjoy that part of it. But the part where it's just sort of sit or stand around and listen to dance music and then try to talk over the music to engage with your friends, I don't know. I felt like I was wishing, and then obviously at the end, there's the little presentation where the head of the organization makes a little announcement thanking everybody and saying how successful it was and blah, blah, blah. But I felt like I wish there was something more.
Yeah.
And I was telling my girlfriend, and she's like, what, you wish we could have broke out a board game or something? I was like, well, I mean, maybe not that exactly, but kind of.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Even with, having drinks and stuff like that, I feel like it's odd because I'll tell like my family and friends, I'm going to a charity event. Right. And they have, and I, in my mind, I'm making these assumptions that they think this is some sort of, charity that we see on TV all the time, where it's like where they have some sort of program and there's, a formal type of, maybe there's a dinner and there's, a presentation and, introducing, people that, work for, the organization that we're, sponsoring, things like that. And it's not really any of that. It's kind of just like, hey, we're renting out a place. Let's go have some drinks, and play some music. Right. And so I agree with you. I feel like it would be, and maybe they, that can happen. You said that did happen at like a fashion show last year or a couple years ago.
Yeah, before COVID, they had a fashion show with a runway and all that, and it was a little bit more of a thing to do. And I enjoyed that a little bit more. I think they also had one a few years ago. I want to say it was like a battle of the bands or something like that, which also gives a little bit more of a hey, let's all participate in this thing together. Yeah. So I don't know. It could be, a lot of people worry about, if I give up drinking, I'm going to be boring and I'm not going to enjoy things as much, and that could be part of it too.
Yeah.
I'm more boring and I enjoy things less. But the serious argument to that is, look, if you're engaging in activities where you have to be buzzed or drunk to enjoy it, then it's probably not an activity that's for you.
Right. No, I agree with that. I mean, you can start your own organizations, Guys Without Ties, and start doing a little bit more of a formal presentation.
We call it Guys with Cries, and we just sit around being miserable instead of wearing neckties.
Ooh, sign me up.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be, it might be difficult to get people to show up for that event.
Well, I mean, you might be able to get the sign up list at the end of the night from a Guys with Ties event after people have had enough drinks. There's
right, exactly.
So speaking of emotions,
yes,
this is a good segue into chapter 5 here.
So chapter 5 is called of Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg is called Emotions Create Habits. And remember that quote by Dr. Robert Glover? There's two kinds of emotions nice guys don't like, theirs and other people's.
I forgot. He was so funny.
That's one of my favorite really quotes that I picked up from. I'm pretty sure it was No More Mr. Nice Guy. It could have been Dating Essentials for Men, but he definitely said that. There's two kinds of emotions. He either said emotions or feelings, but he said one of the two. There's two kinds that nice guys don't like, theirs and other people's. And so now we should say that this chapter 5, BJ Fogg, the author himself, said this is essentially the most important chapter in the book. And let's summarize the steps in behavior design again, which I like to do every episode that we're covering a chapter of the book. Number 1, clarify the aspiration. Number 2, explore behavior options. Number 3, match with specific behaviors. Number 4, start tiny. Number 5, find a good prompt. And step 6, celebrate success. So these little celebrations that we are expected to do right after we complete a behavior that we want to repeat is one of the most difficult parts for me because, this is the first chapter where I felt myself internally pushing back and saying, I don't need to do that. I've got a better way than what he's telling me to do. And, I've sort of learned to trust that inner voice when I say, no, you don't take this advice. Don't listen to this expert. Do it your way instead. I trust that advice to be wrong whenever my brain starts giving it to me.
Yeah.
I see the unhelpful part of myself that doesn't want to do something that feels weird or awkward or uncomfortable is the part that started offering commentary on the book after 4 chapters of not hearing really from that part of myself. Now he's coming out and saying, this doesn't apply to you. You don't have to do it this way. You can do it. You can figure out a better way. And that's when I kind of learn, this is probably where growth is going to happen, but it's not growth that I'm going to find easy or pleasant.
Right. So, have you come up with something of your own way of doing it yet?
Absolutely.
Have you,
no, absolutely not. No.
Okay.
I stopped pretty early on. I recognized what I was doing, and I said to myself, no, I've got to figure out ways to make these celebrations happen for me, even though I don't think I should. Even though I don't think I need to, I recognize that I should, because again, my way, since probably, I don't know, my mid-20s, the first time I decided there was a healthy habit that I needed to develop, and I tried and failed at developing it. So I'm 20 years in for trying to do things my way and not having it work out with lasting positive change. So now I'm not going to say, I'll figure something out. I'll do it a different way. Instead, what I'm going to do is head to the appendix on page 288 and figure out, okay, I've got to come up with a solution to celebrating my successes in a way that is consistent with my personality and consistent with BJ's advice. That really seems like the only way to move forward.
Yeah, I think, and try this. This is something that I thought of as I was going through this chapter this time. I've gone through the book a number of different times, but just wondering if you think this might work for you as you kind of go through these. Just mark off the ones that you think would be effective and you potentially could get yourself to do. And then maybe afterwards you look at all of them after you've kind of filtered them down and just kind of rank them in terms of which ones you think you can get yourself to do the most. Right. And maybe that's where we start.
I think I'm going to do 2 things. And I like that suggestion. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross out the ones that I find to be ridiculous that I know I would never do.
Yeah.
And either just with I'm not going to like scratch them out, but with just one line through it with either a pen or a pencil, I'm just going to cross through it and say, there's no way that the guy I am today is ever going to do this. Like the one that jumped out at me was, fist bump yourself and explode with both fists. There's no way. There is absolutely no way on God's green earth that I would ever, even if I'm just alone by myself. I'm not even thinking of it would be embarrassing for somebody to see me do that. It would just feel ridiculous to even do that in the privacy of my own home.
But let's okay. So
I'm going to cross through it.
Okay, so that's fine. That's fine. Now, just I'd like you to kind of keep a couple things in mind, because what I felt as I was going through some of these. Where it was so ridiculous that it almost made me upset. And so like if I saw somebody do that, I would be, a little bit judgmental, or like, what's wrong with you? Or like, you're so weird. It makes me uncomfortable to watch you do this. Right. Maybe that's a little bit what I'm tapping into here. And if I'm uncomfortable watching somebody else do this, there's no way I would do that. And now it starts to make me feel a little bit bad. So I would say is, as you're going through these, just kind of keep in mind that I mean, this might work for some people, and that's okay.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
they are different.
No,
people. Like I need to do that for myself, because otherwise I'm going to be like, there's something wrong with me because I don't like one of these ideas. You know,
listen, when I hear BJ Fogg read this book in his voice and talk about the ones that work for him, like singing, "Hey, now you're an all-star, you're a rock star,"
right? Yeah, that's
just hearing him talk about it and hearing him sort of quasi sing it. My thought was not, "Oh, this guy's lame, this guy sucks," anything like that. My thought was, this guy is very different from me, and that's okay.
That's a
this
great
guy
way
has
to think about this.
This guy has crap together in his life that I do not have together, and so I look up to him. Yeah. And just because he's able to celebrate his victories in a way that I cannot, that doesn't mean I'm better than him. That just means we're different. Yeah.
So, same thing with, same, all of our experiences are different. We're all, unique thumbprints. So yeah, exactly. That's a great way of thinking about it, for sure.
Like number 60. And that's a thing I had to get used to a long time ago, because growing up, as I think a lot of teenagers do, I had the attitude of, if I like a particular band, movie, TV show, I like it because it's good, and people who don't like it just they don't get it, or they have bad taste. Mm-hmm. Where now that I'm older, I can recognize there are some things I like as far as, pop culture, media, movies, TV shows. They're not good in any objective sense of the word. They're just nostalgic, or they just appeal to something in me that I enjoy them, even though I don't have to say they're good.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that they say it appeals to me, not it's objectively good, right? Yeah.
I mean, there are some comedians.
For sure.
Kevin Hart, Jeff Dunham. I mean, like some really big people that are selling out arenas.
Yeah.
Robin Williams, when he was doing comedy. They're just not my cup of tea. I mean, even George Carlin, which a lot of people look at him as maybe the greatest of all time, he just doesn't do it for me. I don't get to say he's bad at comedy, because the whole world disagrees with me almost. So, but I can say he's not for me.
Yeah, you know what? I like that. And then maybe the move here is, as you're reading this, that's just not my cup of tea.
Right. Like one I highlighted
to me that
number 64. Think nicely done to yourself. I can handle that all day. Like, nicely done. That will still be difficult for me to build a habit out of doing that every time that I do the thing I'm supposed to do. It will still feel weird and awkward, but it's not like high-fiving myself or fist pumping or something like that. Just thinking nicely done does not come natural to me, but it's one that I can see myself doing. Where a lot of the ones on this list, I just can't see myself doing.
Right. And that's the most important thing, is that it really resonates with you. That's the whole thing. Because if it doesn't, you're not going to create the right feelings. You need to, not only do you need, so you definitely don't need to say this and make you feel awkward, uncomfortable, because that's a feeling too. That's not what you want. That's not going to, so I guess what we should do is we should kind of back up here, because I know on the Patreon episode, we kind of got into celebrations a little bit too, but the whole reason why celebrations are important is because BJ basically goes through in this chapter here and talks about how the act of feeling good releases a neurotransmitter called dopamine, and what that does is it wires in the habit into your brain, because it makes you remember to do the habit and it makes you feel good. And what happens then is your brain creates this prediction. It starts to wire, it starts to change, so that it starts to say, hey, when you do this, you feel good. And our body is pre-wired, our brain is pre-wired to say, hey, let's do more of that in the future.
Right.
So basically then you start to create this, these urges and these desires to repeat whatever's making you feel good. And so it's important to do that as much as possible when he talks about not just when you're at the end of the habit, but ideally you do it when you remember to do the new behavior, you do it while you're doing the behavior, and you do it at the end of the behavior, like all throughout if you can. And if not let's simplify it. Just do it at the end. And he kind of breaks it down into an ABC here, right? So you've got your anchor, you do the behavior, and then the C is the celebration here. And through this, basically, that's he's saying emotions. Bottom line is emotions are what create habits, not the number of times you do something, not
right.
Not how good you are at it. So that I just want to kind of get into that before we go digging into the celebrations too much here.
Yeah, I think that is super important to remember. It goes along with you change when you feel good, not when you feel shamed or when you feel bad. And so this is his way, his very concrete way of leveraging that fact by, hacking dopamine, which as you alluded to, that's our motivation hormone. That's the thing in our body that says this is a behavior you should repeat.
Yep.
Which is what turns people into drug addicts as well as helps people build healthy habits.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, and you think about it too. It's like if you're having a bad day, and at the end of the day, it's the end of the day, you've had a long day, you're not feeling good. Somebody asks you to do something new, right? Like, you come home from work and you had a really rough day at work and you're tired and you're hungry. And somebody asks you to do something, how, you're not feeling good. Are you more willing to do something new that you've never done before? Like, I don't know, change the oil in your car or,
yeah.
whatever that might be, or cook a new meal that you've never made before. No, it's a lot easier to, order a pizza, right? You're not going to have the capacity to do something new because it requires you using new pathways in your brain as well. Right. So really his maxim is, feeling better, do things, feeling good, not rather than feeling bad when you try to, do these new habits. So you change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. So we need to find ways to make ourselves feel good. And this is, using these celebrations. And I had some resistance around the word celebrations, because in my mind, I'm thinking, surprise at like a birthday party kind of thing. And so I already had resistance because I'm like you, man. I don't make a big hubbub about most stuff, but, saying, yeah, nice job, to myself, something like that works. And then, as I've listened to him more over time, what he's also said is, another way to think about this is what makes you feel successful? What kind of thought or expression or maybe an action or whatever makes you feel like you were just successful in some way? So, when I heard it that way, that helped a little bit. And the other thing that he's working on recently is really tying that acknowledgement, that feeling of success in some way to your, to that bigger aspiration. So if there's something that you could say, yes, this gets me one step closer to 6-pack abs for you, for example, or whatever that might be, right? Gets me one step closer to having more control over my relationship with food, something like that, right? That's, and just trying to remember that also is a valid thing. It's whatever generates that good, positive feeling in you.
Yeah. The thing I struggled with the first time, it was either the first time I read this chapter or the first time you and I even talked about tiny habits, was the idea of celebrating something that I think I'm supposed to be doing anyway. It's like, just the feeling of, no, I don't get to celebrate this. This is, waking up and putting my pants on is just something I should be doing anyway. Why do I deserve a celebration for this? But again, that where's that thinking gotten us, right?
But that's not, putting your pants on isn't like a habit you need to develop, right? That's a part of, that might be a starter step or something like that, right?
Correct.
That's not the whole thing, right?
Correct.
And then also you got to stop shooting all over yourself. So, I heard that the other day. So I was like, I really like that. The whole should thing, right? I mean, that's something I think we all should work on, is not shoulding, because then those are expectations that were implanted in our brain from people outside of us. Right. So, again, I think we can run the risk of, comparing our average day to somebody's, social media post, right? Where they're having the best day ever. That's when I think we feel like, oh, well, this person's been doing this. I should be doing this too, right? Or I should be able to easily do this, Yeah.
Or even, something like, okay, say your starter habit is, say you want to develop a meditation practice. So your starter habit is to light a candle.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing, when you light that candle, you're supposed to do a celebration because you took a step toward it, but then that gets confronted with your own inner monologue that says, all you're doing is meditating 10 minutes a day. You should have been doing this for the last 10 years. So why do you feel entitled to celebrate the fact that you clicked the button on a lighter and you lit a candle? That's ridiculous. And I think that, and he talks about that in here, the self trash talk that, does get in the way of building these habits where, you're so quick to go to, you should have been doing this habit that you're trying to develop today, whether it's, exercising, giving up drinking, trying to meditate, trying to journal every day, whatever the thing is that you're working on, there is going to, and this may be just something that affects guys our age and older. I don't know. This idea of, man, I really lost an opportunity. I should have been doing this healthy thing that I believe is beneficial 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And now here I am at 45 trying to develop this habit today. And, but it's like, okay, you should have planted that tree 20 years ago, but is that a reason to not plant it today?
Right. Well, let's, I don't remember where I learned this, but I love this is, compare yourself to yesterday, measure backwards, never forwards. Right. So, okay. Now you're lighting a candle and you feel like you should be doing a lot more, you should be doing your full, 20 minutes twice a day, but what were you doing yesterday? Did you even light the candle yesterday? No.
Right.
So you know what? As small as it is, you made progress, right? And the other thing too is, recognize that, hey, you are now basically if you want to get real geeky here in terms of, things that are in motion tend to stay in motion. Sometimes it's really hard to get that initial inertia going, right? And those tiny little when the initial habit, that initial step is so tiny, it's a lot easier. It's not pushing a whole boulder up a cliff, up a mountain. It's a tiny. You're kicking a pebble a little bit, and that's all you got to do. And so, to me, that's you are basically then making, once you break that initial inertia, you can kind of then, maybe I already lit the candle, might as well get the cushion out and sit on the cushion. Right. And all right, I'm already sitting on the cushion. Like, I got a little extra time this morning, or I'm feeling pretty good. I'll just close my eyes for a couple of minutes. Right. And, so, but then be okay if you're running late, you're not feeling well, and you just light the candle the next day. But the point is you're keeping it alive. So it's part of the, you are still, so part of that. And he talks about this later on in the book, but part of this, by doing these little things, you are then also changing your identity. You are now somebody who meditates, because you can count that, because you are at least lighting the candle. You are practicing the meditation habit by at least lighting that candle every single day. You are now somebody who meditates. And when you've changed that shift in your identity, then it becomes a lot easier to, get that initial, starter step going. And it's still, I feel, better than not doing anything at all for, some odd how many years, because when your identity is changed now, that also spills over into other areas of your life, the other relationships that you have, how you carry yourself, how you communicate with other people. I think it really just kind of ripples out in a lot of ways we don't really think about. But everybody will get that by finishing this book. You will start to see those other ripple effects. And so right now, I totally get it. Right. When you're like, this feels weird. It doesn't, the celebration, but by the time you're done with the book, you're like, okay, I can see the value in these celebrations beyond what I'm just reading here in chapter 5.
Yeah. And, the comparing yourself to what you pulled off yesterday, and not what you believe you should be doing, is definitely valuable. Because you have to look realistically at, okay, what's your history? What's the actual amount of effort and amount of success you've been able to pull off in this area? Because, by trying to tell myself that I don't have to follow all the advice in this book, I can merge his way and my way and maybe come up with something that also works for me. It's like, it's part of also the temptation of not going tiny enough, right? Where you feel like, oh, yes, if I go too tiny, but you have to ask yourself, what is better? What's more effective? What's more important? Do I want to be a guy who fails at big habits or a guy who succeeds at small habits?
Yeah. And Charles, think about it this way too, is before we start changing things, and obviously, let's try exactly his way first, right?
100%. Yes.
Through the whole thing. So that way we can go, okay, this works, this doesn't, right? For me, this might work. I might want to tweak this, but you're not going to know what that's going to be if you start already messing with it before you finish the whole process, right, and go through it. Right. And he also does talk about this in this chapter, is that, after you've already wired in that habit, you don't have to do the celebration anymore. Like that's the thing, is once you don't have to think about it anymore, once your identity and once your behavior is, this is just something I do. I just floss
right,
my teeth after I brush. You don't need to do your little dance in the mirror anymore afterwards,
Right.
But because the act of flossing itself starts to feel good.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've got to try to remember not to bail on it too early, though, because I feel like that could be my temptation, is to.
That's good that you recognize that. Yeah,
bail on the celebration before I should.
People don't like being uncomfortable with stuff, right? And so it's
right,
like, when you're getting pushed a little bit, but it does get easier. It absolutely gets easier. And I think that's great that you're going through the, at the back of the chapter, you're looking at all of those and figuring out, hey, which ones resonate, which ones don't. But again, it's, keep it for whatever, resonates with you. I don't know if it was this chapter or the previous one where he's talking about, I think it's probably this one where he's talking about his uncle who, is kind of like a grumpy Gus.
I think it might have been the last one.
Okay.
I can't remember for sure.
And, he said, oh yeah, went to a family reunion with BJ and BJ was telling him about how he discovered, celebrating to be, to be the key here with creating habits. And he's like, yeah, well, that might work for some people, but not everybody. And he asked his uncle, he's like, well, okay, how do you, what goes through your mind after you prove somebody wrong with something? And, he points up and he goes, bingo. He goes, okay, well, that's your celebration then. Right. That's what makes you feel good. And so, I know, sometimes, we've gotten into, sometimes arguments, and sometimes, you've gotten to you are pretty active sometimes with stuff on social media with certain topics and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like when you've clearly, and that kind of reminded me, it's like, okay, when you feel like you've won an argument, or a discussion on social media, how does that feel? What do you think? And maybe that's something to tap into too. It's just maybe just like a feeling of some sort of feeling of satisfaction. Right.
Yeah.
So, that, whatever that might be, that's an option.
Yeah. I think I can figure out a path to make this work for me, and doing it in a way that is within the scope of the way he's telling me to do it.
Okay.
And just making it feel real. Not the first time, not the second time, but eventually. Like another one of the celebrations in the back of the book is to imagine the taste of chocolate after you do the thing you're supposed to do.
I'm already mouth watering. As soon as you said that, I was like, already. I already felt a little squirt there.
I know it doesn't require you to say anything. Doesn't require you to physically do anything. Just the ones where you're thinking something, I think, are the ones that I'll be able to probably pull off the easiest. Now, he may make the argument that you'll get more benefit from the ones that require more more action, but I'm going to start small and see where it goes.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, he even in the chapter, he even says there's a whole section on that celebration is a skill. So we can't expect that this is going to, and he even says that so many of the people that he's trained have resistance with this. So, we're both of us are not alone here in terms of feeling a little uncomfortable with this. I've also seen some studies that show like there are marked changes in your hormone profile simply by biting a pencil. Now, that's because you're literally changing the shape of your mouth, the muscles around your cheeks, and into like a smile when you bite a pencil. And that actually can change your hormones and actually put you in a better mood. I recently had a little sadness in my life, to say the least, over the last week, and I was feeling really bad. I don't normally, I'm fortunate. I don't typically fall into a lot of long bouts of sadness or depression, but I dipped pretty low, and I remember on the drive home, I took a pen out and I put it in my mouth and I bit down on it to force myself to smile for at least a good half hour while I was listening to actually listening to BJ's calming and positive voice from the Tiny Habits Audible book. And between that and actually forcing myself to smile, it did give me some sort of physical relief. I did feel a little less anxious, a little less sad. And so when I do some of these new habits, I smile, or I try to think of myself as smiling after I do them. And I've gotten to the point of where, like, when I remember to do it, I get excited. I'm like, oh, I remember to do my new habit. I'm excited, legitimately, a little excited about that. I was like, oh, wow. Hey, I still got some brain cells left. So, yeah. And so sometimes, just smiling, releases a little bit of a adrenaline rush, or, a little bit of a good feelings for me. And that's something to maybe think about trying, instead of, you don't have to, do like a celebration dance in an end zone, like a football player, but maybe just a little smile, smirk, something like that might be something to try. Because I do think being physical, making some sort of fit, not just saying something to yourself, but the enhancement of doing something physical with that too, with your body that is sensing that this was a good thing, it definitely will help.
Yeah, I can see the value for sure. It is a little bit more of an ask, and possibly a little bit more of a awkward feeling to do that kind of celebration, but not to say it's not worth it, because I do believe that it is. And I'm gonna go through the list and see if there are any that I can engage some physicality in, or if the ones that have that all just feel too weird to me to start with. You know what I mean? So
something to think about here, which after listening to the chapter this morning, I remember the recycling can that they wired up Homer Simpson's voice to. So every time somebody threw something in this can, they heard "Marge, mail's here" in Homer's voice. And, he found that people were looking for scraps of cans and paper and stuff like that to throw into the bin, so they could hear it again. Sometimes they're pulling stuff out of the garbage can to put it back in so they could hear it. Yep. But he reminded me that humor is makes you feel good. So maybe, something to think about is there something like a line from a comedian, or a line from yourself, or something that happened that makes you chuckle that you could think of, around, when you're practicing the new behavior? Is that something maybe?
Possibly. I'll give that some thought.
And I tell you what, man, when as much as it seemed cheesy, whatever, but the fist explosion, we both laughed about it. Like, it's not something we would do, but maybe that's something we should do because it's so funny. I'm going to get a chuckle out of that, because to me, it's ridiculous, and maybe because I'm thinking of also some lines, some scenes in some TV shows or movies where they did it, where it was over the top, extra, as the kids say these days.
Indeed they do. All right. Well, thanks for working through this challenging chapter with me, and and providing the support and accountability where, any time that I start talking myself into, the rules that this successful person came up with don't apply to you. You can do it a better way than them.
Mm-hmm.
That usually is not a recipe for success for me, but it is one of my tendencies. And hopefully, of the dozen or so people that listen to this podcast, we'll have somebody else out there that has the same kind of tendency, and they'll be able to learn from my temporary ability to humble myself and say, okay, no, this is probably not going to work for me. So I'm just going to do it the way that he says to do it and see how it goes.
Yeah. And I mean, full transparency, I did that through the first time I read this book.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, I'll just make my habits small. I don't need to celebrate. And I didn't keep any of those habits, man. I tried it without it, and part of what he also suggests here is, to practice the habit 7 to 10 times. And that is also where I had a little resistance. I'm like, because you do it 3 times, after the third time, you're like, do I really?
Yep.
I'm telling you, when I didn't do that, it went to the wayside. So recently I read something from Huberman, basically about water, and that part of how often and how much you pee is related to how much you drink at one time. And so what he says is, for people who get up in the middle of the night and, pee a lot, which I do, and sometimes it disturbs my sleep, he recommends sipping on water, taking small sips rather than, gulping down half a glass or a full glass at a time, which I have a tendency to do to try to get all my water in. So I have changed over to doing small sips, and in my brain I was like, okay, well, all right, 5 p.m. start sipping on water instead of taking large gulps of water. And I sat in my car and I just visualized, and I said that to myself over and over and over again, because normally I set an alarm when I'm trying to do something new. Sometimes I'll set an alarm on my phone. Okay, it's 5 o'clock, start taking small sips. It started to get annoying because it was going off every day at 5 p.m. And
right.
I was like, well, look, if I'm going to be supportive of behavior design and behavior change, let's find a way that I don't need this external prompt anymore. And, a few days ago, I sat in my car and I just said to myself, 5 p.m. Okay. Take small sips, take small sips, take small sips. And I said it 7 to 10 times and, was smiling and a little bit laughing at myself at the time. And I found myself remembering over the last few days, and not just at 5 p.m. I mean, throughout the day, taking some smaller sips of water has served me well. I'm still able to get my water in, and I am not peeing like a racehorse all the time. So, it's the evidence does point to his method being very effective.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's part of the appeal of spending so many times in so many good nonfiction personal development books is I feel like I'm starting to develop a radar of stuff that would never have occurred to me, but still feels true and feels legit. And the stuff in this book certainly qualifies. It's like, this feels like it. This guy's onto something. It feels legitimate,
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm trying to just go with what he says. And next week I will share my my list of all the celebrations that I have decided I can pull off, and which ones I've decided to pair with which of my tiny habits too.
Yeah, and he's really good. He's very creative in terms of giving you options. So at the end of the chapter, there's a bunch of exercises, and he goes through different ideas, categories that you might want to think about, such as different modes of celebration. So songs that you love that make you feel happy and successful or upbeat, physical movements, we've talked about that. Verbal statements, we've talked about that. Sound effects, which is interesting.
I remember that one.
Right. But, like, playing, Candy Crush or, any of these, like even the habit tracker app we were talking about, sometimes you get a little ding at the end of it.
Yeah.
That encourages you to, to keep playing. And then visualizations, so maybe, picturing, your child or, your animal coming to greet you when you first walk through the door. What does that feel like, or if they do something when you rub their tummy or something like that, maybe just a quick image of that might, just put a little smile on your face, or just give you a little sense of warmth. And I think those all qualify.
Yeah. I love the 100 celebrations in the appendix at the end of the book that he suggests too, which you can download a PDF if you have the audio book, or I've got a physical copy that as I said I just bought on eBay. I think it's a used copy from a library that didn't need it, and that's a great way to get cheap books that are still in pretty good condition.
Yeah,
you can't you can always check it out at your local library, but I like to write in my books, so it's easier for me to just go on eBay and buy a $5 or $6 used copy of a book and use that for putting my notes in. But the 100 suggestions at the end of the book. I'm sure I'll find half a dozen, at least maybe a dozen of those 100 that will work for me. And I will reveal that list in our next episode.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate your help through this material and your encouragement to not skimp on the parts that are going to be difficult because
we'll dig into
there's always
those.
a tendency to do that.
Yeah, and that's what we'll do. We'll give the support around the difficult parts. So,
all right, cool. All right, thanks. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
Bye.